Your Second Amendment rights are under attack like no other time in history, and the Second Amendment Foundation needs you to take action now. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have pledged to make taking away your Second Amendment rights a top priority through gun bans, gun confiscation, government regulations, and even a gun tax. They have aligned themselves with anti-gun activists like billionaire Michael Bloomberg and appoint radicals like Beto O'Rourke as the anti-gun czar. The fight begins now with your text of Protect 2A to 474747. Text Protect 2A to 474747 to pledge your support and become a Second Amendment first responder. Your right to own a gun and protect your family are on the line. Text Protect 2A to 474747 and join the fight to protect your Second Amendment rights. Text Protect 2A to 474747 to pledge your support and become a Second Amendment first responder.
Underneath the star-filled skies tonight, you discover my disguise. It ain't right, no it ain't right. I've been lying to myself, you can see. Only honesty sets men free. Yeah, my truth.
Your SRN program begins in 60 seconds.
Come on! Can bring down walls, the truth. Yeah, it's a wrecking ball. I said the truth. Cements the soul, yeah, true. Yeah. The truth can bring down walls.
Shooter standby.
You hit the radio bullseye. And the home for everything Second Amendment, concealed carry, the latest gear, reciprocity, legislation, the right to self-protection, and it shall not be infringed. This is Eye on the Target Radio with your hosts, Rob and Amanda.
So hey there, folks. I hope that you enjoyed last week's show with the various gals of the DC Project, and understand that that was put in the can remotely simply because I was on the range when we were supposed to be doing our show, and you cannot do a live show from the range because it's really distracting. All those bullet sounds and all that noise and all that shooter ready and.
We've had Holly Sullivan on, and she's been at the actual, because she's worked in the range, so she's trying to do a little segment, and the continuous gunfire in the background does make it a little difficult.
It's just a little distracting, just a little. So we instead lined up all of the DC Project gals for you, and if you did not catch that, go back to the archives, and you will be able to do that. So you can go to Eye on the Target Radio, and eyeonthetargetradio.com, and go to archives and just get all of the old shows. But the DC Project girls are pretty amazing, and I call them girls, but women, amazing women. But okay, so I was at the range. I actually drove about 13 hours to take a 2-day class so that I could drive 13 hours back, and time to go back to work. So while I was doing that, what were you doing? What were you shooting? What were you hanging out with? Anything special?
We were shooting black powder pistol at 100 yards for entertainment.
Okay, so 100 yards, like on a stand, off stand, standing up. What were you doing?
Garrett shoots offhand all the time because he thinks he's cool, but I have to use a rest to actually hit something. So I can hit a 12-inch target I have a Uberti 1860 Army, and I can hit a 12-inch target at 100 yards with it using a rest. So
were you like sandbagging it, or are you elbowing it? What were you doing?
Basically resting my elbows on a board to give me something. So it wasn't like my pistol was supported, just me. But it was it's a lot. It's funny because it takes so long for the bullet to get there. It's faster than a speeding bullet is really a
misnomer. Well, some speeding bullets are speedier than other speeding bullets. Some of them it looks like you could almost see them in the air.
The only thing worse than the black powder, I have some English pistols, and they go about 500 foot a second. I mean, it's by today's Magnum standards, they're almost comical, and not the...
Okay. Well, and it's really funny because some bullets you can actually see moving through the air, or some of them you can see, like the vapor trail. What was that picture you showed me yesterday?
Oh, that was a guy shooting long range, and the vapor trail, you could see actually the spirals of the rifling in the smoke that was going down range. So the sun caught the vapor in the air just right, and it turned into like a 6-inch spiral of smoke going down range.
It looked like a cartoon had been drawn. That's
like
what
a big giant spring from the end of the gun all the way to the target.
Right. It was an absolute amazing photo that kind of defined.
I've seen that. I mean, I shoot like high velocity varmint rifles a lot, and I've seen on real humid days where with the sun just right, you can see that silver streak where the bullets are beating their way through the water in the air.
Okay.
And it makes a difference because the bullet having to push all that water out of the air, it gets tired by the time it gets to the end.
It gets tired. So too do we. That's how that goes. But no, it was pretty interesting. I always like seeing what other people do, how other people do it, how other people train, how other people practice. So perpetually the student is, I think, one of the things that sets apart like a good instructor from a bad instructor. The bad instructor says he knows it all or thinks he knows it all, so he doesn't need to go to any more training. And a good instructor is like, man, I know this little sliver, and there's so much around me that I want to know more of.
He doesn't go to training because he doesn't want them to show him that he does what he doesn't know. So pretty soon, all of a sudden, he's in a spot where it's like...
Well, it's pretty obvious what he doesn't know. If he doesn't go, I mean, and frankly, you have to be willing to say, I'm having a good day or I'm having a bad day.
You know, the thing is, if you read the self-defense books from the 70s and that,
yeah.
and then you read some of the modern stuff, the techniques have changed so much from what they had thought was good sound practice, I guess.
Right.
And so it's evolving every day. The shooting, even though we've been shooting for 5 centuries, we're learning more and more stuff about it.
Well, I think that kind of happens with anything. Once you show somebody it can be done, then people build on something, and then they build on the next thing, and then they build on. So you stand on the shoulders of those who came before you.
Well, some of it too is if you're really into it, all of a sudden you start realizing that water that the bullet's pushing out of the way, it affects the way the bullet flies. The average guy who's just shooting at a deer doesn't care that if it's humid out or dry out, or he doesn't shoot far enough or at something small enough that it makes a difference.
Well,
Where a guy who's trying to shoot a mile and hit something somewhat small starts to noticing high pressure, low pressure.
Well, I saw you and Corinne Mosier sitting there having a conversation about wind speed and how you can feel it on your face.
And it's not just about what's happening with you. You got to figure what's happening at the target end too. So if you look at it, you may be sitting in the spot where the wind is really rough, but at the target end, it's actually calm. Or maybe the other way around. It's really calm where you're at, but at the other end, you have a 14-mile-an-hour crosswind, and that's going to affect the way that your bullet actually lands at that end of it. So you have to think ahead of time. I mean, like I say, if you're shooting close enough, it doesn't make a difference. But the farther out you go, the more that this. It's kind of funny if you see a wind chart for a bullet. It may give you a ballistic coefficient of like 0.633, but it'll still show you that a 5-mile-an-hour crosswind may blow the thing off a course by 115 inches or something like this. So.
Well, yeah. So I mean, so there's all the kinds of stuff. So
there
when
was 400 inches of drop, but 115 inches of left rudder also.
so it's like, okay, so you're aiming over and up, and you gotta know all that. It's pretty amazing. But I mean, I think that's a piece of it, is making sure that as you train, because I mean, we're really talking about training and learning and perpetually learning, and that's it. We in the gun industry that are sharing information have to be perpetually training. We in the gun industry that are talking to you or training you or whatever have to stay on the alert so that we have the latest and greatest information. You want to know what the new guns are. You want to know what the new powder is. You want to know what the new whatever is. And
the funny part is this, it comes out so fast you can't stay ahead of it. It's unbelievable how much new powder, new this, new that. I mean, it's as simple as somebody could sell some kind of a boar butter or something that all of a sudden makes your bullets go an extra 200 foot a second faster. Now all your old information you have written on your gun goes away.
Well, who was the guy who wrote the book on the barrel, on the you talk about it.
Well, back in the 60s, there was a guy that had a book called Minute of Angle, and he had a gun that would shoot a 1-inch group at 100 yards, and he lamented. The whole book was like 200 pages of, eventually my gun's going to wear out, and I'll never be able to buy another one.
Right.
Today, almost any gun can do that, but in 1960, it wasn't the case.
And what was this book called?
And it's called Minute of Angle, I think.
But who was it?
I
don't know.
I'd have to look it up.
Okay, because it was his book of everything that he did to make his gun the best.
Right. It's funny when you look at some of these old notes these guys were writing and everything. So and a lot of them, if you find the old target rifle, it'll have it wrote on the side of the stock how many clicks, well, this, that, the other thing.
It's written right on the side.
They have to get back to where they're going to.
Well, and there's that, but new technology changes everything, and so.
And now it's in your smartphone, and it gathers all the information and it'll tell you what you're doing.
Mantis,
your phone.
I'm telling you, Mantis tells you so much.
Oh, we had a couple of guy a couple months ago that was on had some kind of a program you could link into your rifle for long range shooting. And
There's so much of that.
The wind and the humidity and everything of that day that you were shooting on, and it collected all that data for you without you having to
and
have your own little weather station
cool.
next to your shooting box.
So Charlie Cook just came onto the screen and said that he is looking forward to the Mag 40 class, and so I don't know who is seeing this or hearing this. It's probably way too late, but in South Dakota next week is a Mag 40 class with Masad Ayub. And then I know he's teaching other places across the country. So he is one of the guys that I'm going to say, check your bucket list of who you want as a trainer. And then graph them out by their average age, because they're not getting any younger, and neither are you. And so you need to be able to plan where you're going, what you're doing, and hit the ones you want when you want them.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit ProjectChildSafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the backseat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Had a dirty day? Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps, made from fresh goat's milk and organic oils that detoxify, clean, and restore moisture to skin, will get you ready for your next adventure. These unique soaps are handcrafted in the Blue Ridge Mountains and shipped to anywhere in the U.S. Visit SillyBillyGoatFarm.com for their full line of Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps. That's SillyBillyGoatFarm.com.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
We are going to, in our history section, we're going to talk a little bit about reloading and the dangers of reloading. So I'm going to out us just a little bit in this conversation because I want to tell you something that happened to me. I was shooting a pistol this past weekend that has a section of the barrel that is unsupported. So
almost all automatic pistols have this unsupported chamber, they call it.
Okay. So there's like a hole, a little square hole.
Glocks are the most famous because they push that. You got to buy a special reloading die and all kinds of other things for it.
So in the COVID and in the shortage of shortage of supplies, we reload. Well, I don't reload. I don't. We've talked about this. I don't reload. I look at him and he reloads.
We were in a tight spot and were able to buy a bunch of bullets, but had to pull them down, and so we pulled them down.
Let's talk about why we pulled them down.
Well, it's old submachine gun ammo from the 50s, and so it's corrosive for one thing, so you don't want to have to deal with having to scrub that out all the time. And then it's from the 50s, you don't have no idea if it'll go off or not, so it was to make it more reusable. I just pulled it all down. I mean, I got nothing but a week of free time, so
pulled it apart, and reused the projectiles.
Right, I threw the gunpowder out. I saved the casings because down the road, who knows, I might need primed casing. But the bullets, I saved them all. Well, they all look exactly the same. It was like 1,100 rounds in a box of this Yugoslavian stuff. When I checked, I just reached in and took out 20 or so, checked them, and they come out at 100 grain bullets. So I figured they were all 100 grain bullets. So
just keep that in mind, right there. Just keep that in mind. So now, don't tell the story. Let me tell them my experience, and then we'll go back to that. Okay. So now you've seen the history of it, which was the fact that we've gotten these bullets, pulled them down, reloaded them, and there you go. Now I've grabbed them and I've taken them on a 13-hour trip to a training class. And we're shooting exercises, and then all of a sudden, one of them didn't go bang, it went boom. And when it went boom, it actually blew the base plate out of the magazine, extended the spring from the magazine, smoke's rolling up out of the little port out the top, and I'm holding my gun, aiming it down range, and with one hand up to the range safety officer who's working the line said, I have a little bit of a problem as my gun is looking kind of like a jack-in-the-box with the spring hanging down and it going doink, 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 right? This is not good. So your gun worked perfectly. All of its vents worked the way that it's supposed to. It's built so that if something happens, it can eject that gas out down that shaft. Out the bottom. And so that's what it did. And so it blew that base plate off, which in turn blew all the bullets out the bottom and everything. Right, so all the bullets went flying, all the pieces,
with the short inspection, it was easy enough to shove it in the magazine and away you go again. If it gets a little more violent than that, sometimes I've seen like 1911 where it blows the wooden grips off of the gun also.
Okay, well I didn't have that, so it did everything it was supposed to do. So since I'd gone with another second gun, just like the first gun, I set that gun aside, waiting for a time when I wasn't on the line to inspect it, grabbed another magazine, went back out on the line to shoot. I shot about 6 more rounds, and I had a second one of those. Go, bang, boom, spring, magazine, jettisoned, Okay, so now I have 2 guns, 2 magazines, and things.
So cheap bullets only cost you a $50 magazine, eh?
Well, in one case, because I didn't get all the pieces back from my magazine to reassemble it, one of the magazines has given its life for this experience. So now I come back saying, I switched to other ammo and finished the class. Now we have to try to figure out what exactly happened and how did it happen and what are we doing about it.
Put our Inspector Clouseau hat on.
We did. So we're like, what could be? What could it be?
Just looking at it and deducing what was going on, I know that the machine is accurate and everything. So I'm like, the only thing that can happen is something has to be wrong with the bullet weight. And so I took the partial box that she had there and a couple other boxes that she would give me, and I started to weigh them. And it was funny because most of them weighed 163 grains with the primer, bullet, everything all assembled.
So primer, powder, so a full bullet, that's what it weighed.
Right, but I did have a couple out of this bundle that were up in the 170 to 190 grain range. And so I started pulling them. Well, the 170s everything was normal, and that was just the additional weight of brass or something in there. But the 190 grain, the 187, 190s, those bullets all weighed in 124 grains. So where it was 100, I was loading for 100 grain bullet. That extra 24 grains of bullet weight were enough to actually start to push that case out of the way, and that's what blew that magazine up. So by having extra 24 grains of bullet weight was the problem causer. But when you looked at the bullets side by side, they're the same length, the same everything. You can only tell with the scale that they're heavier.
That they're heavier. So this, I thought that this was an interesting thing. So in the history portion, because it is a history portion, reloaders they've created a recipe and then they don't deviate from that. And so they know what bullets they want, they know what powder they want, and then if something changes, they've got to go back and rework the recipe.
But also as a reloader, I loaded these with a certain kind of a gunpowder that didn't have a large window in it. There is some gunpowders that will encompass from 100 grain to 140 grain, all in that same powder range. So had I used that gunpowder, it would have done fine. You would have never noticed the difference.
You wouldn't have. Or had I been shooting a gun that wasn't a semi-auto, you wouldn't have noticed.
If you were shooting those in like the Ruger Blackhawk or something that were support all the way around, it wouldn't have done anything to it. But it was just enough that the casing gave up where it was not supported at the rear.
So it's really a whole series of different things that all happen at the same time. And I know a lot of people wouldn't share this story, and then others are like, oh, I hate reloaded ammo. There's a reason. And it's, are you careful? Are you sure? Do you know? And are you willing to go down through this?
Millions of rounds and shot.
And I have shot Rob's bullets for the last 20 years, and I don't have an issue. So the first thing people are like, oh, it's reloads, it's a problem. It's not reloads that was a problem. It was this reload that was a problem, and we needed to identify the problem. We'll be back right after this.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Had a dirty day? Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps, made from fresh goat's milk and organic oils that detoxify, clean, and restore moisture to skin, will get you ready for your next adventure. These unique soaps are handcrafted in the Blue Ridge Mountains and shipped to anywhere in the U.S. Visit SillyBillyGoatFarm.com for their full line of Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps. That's SillyBillyGoatFarm.com. Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Sepulcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Writing Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Writing Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, KRMAradio.com.
This is Dan Perkins with your Songs and Stories for Soldiers, Veterans Tip of the Day. If you're a veteran with a disability, are you interested in a program that could give you a free home? Homes for Our Troops is a privately funded 501c3 nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post-9/11 veterans to enable them to rebuild their lives. These homes restore some of the freedom and independence our veterans sacrificed while defending our country and enable them to focus on their family and recovery. Since its inception in 2004, nearly 90 cents of every dollar has gone directly to the program to serve veterans. HFOT builds these homes where the veterans choose to live and continues its relationship with the veterans after the home delivery to assist them in rebuilding their lives. For more information, go to their website, www.hfotusa.org, and see if you can qualify for the home of your dreams. This has been your Songs and Stories for Soldiers, Veterans Tip of the Day.
Okay, folks, welcome back. And in our interview segment, I want to introduce you to Amanda Collins Johnson. So she is the founding director of Tears Speak, teaching and empowering assault rape survivors. So that makes her a tough gal. She was born and raised in Nevada. She became a Second Amendment activist. So she became a Second Amendment activist after surviving a brutal attack as a college student. This activism led her to a passion for leading others to live a full life after surviving trauma through the healing powers of Jesus Christ. Amanda has had the privilege to share her message, living after surviving, on several platforms. Amanda is also the author, and this is what we're going to talk about, is her book, Beyond Survival, Reclaiming My Life After I Was Hijacked by Rape. To date, Amanda's greatest accomplishment is a family she has been blessed with. She is the wife to Nathaniel, and she's a homeschooling mother of 3 girls that I have had the pleasure of meeting, and they are pistols, if I could say. So Amanda has written this book, and she is in the process of doing pre-orders and trying to get the book published, because there's always this issue. If you are a new author, how do you get people to notice? How do you get a publisher? How do you get out there? And so that's part of what we're going to talk to Amanda about. Hey, Amanda, thanks for joining us on Eye on the Target Radio.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Amanda.
No problem. So Amanda, meet Amanda. There we go. So I have heard you speak in DC to our various representatives as you tell your story. But what took you from being a speaker on, kind of a one-on-one to saying, I'm going to write a book about this?
It was more just a lot of people around me just kept saying, you should write a book, you should write a book. And I just kind of laughed and was like, okay. But I just started sitting up late at night, not being able to sleep, and started typing out on my screen, and a story came out. My story came out. It wasn't creative, really, because it's just the story that I live. And I just want to be able to share the story of redemption that I've experienced with other survivors, and the best way I could think of, or the most effective way I could think of to do that, would be to write a book.
Okay. So I know that I tagged you because I had seen where you were doing, like, not only a pre-order, but it's not a GoFundMe. What exactly is happening with Redemption Press? And it's redemption-press.com. But what's happening with them that you're looking for different levels of people to support this book?
Correct. Yeah. So Redemption Press is a hybrid self-publishing company. And I wanted to do self-publishing because maintaining the editorial ability over my book and being able to select what content stays in and doesn't stay in was very important to me. And also just having say over the cover and all of that just in my healing process was very important to me. But they also take it a step further. They allow me to do all that, but they help me in presenting a professional, well-edited product. And so why I'm asking for partnerships is because it's not free. The services that they offer are not cheap. And so essentially it's instead of the publisher paying me an upfront fee or saying, okay, we're going to assume these costs, I'm fronting the costs of publishing the book to get it out there. Okay. So I know that there was an email that went out talking about what those levels are and stuff. So why don't you share that so people understand where this is and where can they go to see that? And then we're gonna talk about the content of the book. We're gonna talk about how close you were to a police station. We're gonna talk about your story. Yeah. So if you go, you said it, I think you mentioned it, it's redemption-press.com, and you can look up the pre-orders on their book. My book is called Beyond Survival, Reclaiming My Life After I Was Hijacked by Rape. And there's several different levels for partnership. Is that what you wanted me to talk about? Just the different ways people can partner with me. So I have just the base level is a supporter, which is $35, and the donor will receive a signed copy of my book after publication and 2 decal stickers to my nonprofit, Tear Speak. The advocate is for $75, and the donor will receive a personalized signed copy of Beyond Survival. Every level receives 1 to 2 copies of my book that I'll personalize to you all, and then just different fun things from Tear Speak. But the highest level, which is the partnership level, is $1,000. You'll receive all of those things, and then I'll also give special recognition in my book to the donor.
Okay. So, folks, go check that out because you're going to want to. But, Amanda, you start to tell your story, and I've heard you tell pieces of your story. Mm-hmm. And so you want to give them a little teaser so that they get an idea of kind of what happened, what you're talking about, and how did you gasp? How did you turn into a gun advocate after this instead of, guns are bad?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess probably the best way to give a teaser would just be to read like the first page of my book as the entry of the intro. Okay. 8 minutes was all it took. Oh.
Okay, we've got 4 minutes, and then I'm going to interrupt you. So start, and then we'll go.
Okay. 8 minutes was all it took. How is my family going to find me? I wondered as I stared into pure evil while he got up. I like that skirt. It makes you look good, he stated, standing over my body with half his face peering out from under the hood of his sweatshirt, adjusting the waistband of his gym pants with one hand, continuing to point the gun at me with the other. Stay there until I'm gone, he commanded. I didn't know him, but suddenly his face engraved itself in my memory so forcefully I knew I could never pray it away. It would be the face that would haunt my nightmares for years to come. A slight gust of wind whisked my flipped-up skirt. My panties were gone. My thighs were wet with him, and now cold. My eyes were closed, and I listened to him fade into the darkness much slower than he had taken me. He scampered off calmly with a heavy plod, each pace taunting me, letting me know that I wasn't on my way to meeting Jesus like I so desperately wanted. I was still living while no longer being alive. So that is right after I had left a college class. It was 10 p.m. at night on a Monday night, and I had just taken my midterm. I had left with a group of people. I had parked in the particular parking garage that I had parked in because it was ingrained in me growing up that there's safety in numbers. My parents made my sister and I get our second-degree black belts to get our driver's licenses when we turned 16. And so being aware of surroundings was nothing new to me. I didn't see anything between myself and my vehicle when I approached the ground floor. And so I wished my colleagues a good night and continued to go towards my car. I parked particularly where I was because I was on the same floor where the police officers on campus parked their cruisers. And as I was being raped, I was less than 50 feet away from the police office, the front door of the office. However, their offices had closed at 6, and my class got over with at 10. At the time of my attack, I had obtained my concealed carry permit. However, I wasn't able to carry it on campus because as the law stood then and continues to stand now, it is illegal to carry any type of firearm unless you are law enforcement onto a college campus in Nevada. And so being a law-abiding citizen, I left my firearm at home and went to my class. However, we know that or gun control laws, whatever they want to say, affects only the law-abiding. And my attacker was committed to doing evil, and he committed a crime with a firearm that night.
So hang on right now, because I'm going to have you come back right after the commercial break. So guns were not allowed, yet the criminal didn't abide by the laws. When we come back, Amanda Collins-Johnson.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Sepulcool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
Had a dirty day? Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps, made from fresh goat's milk and organic oils that detoxify, clean, and restore moisture to skin, will get you ready for your next adventure. These unique soaps are handcrafted in the Blue Ridge Mountains and shipped to anywhere in the U.S. Visit SillyBillyGoatFarm.com for their full line of Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps. That's SillyBillyGoatFarm.com.
Okay, we are back, and with us is our guest and book author, Amanda Collins Johnson, and she has written the book Beyond Survival, Reclaiming My Life After I Was Hijacked by Rape. And so Amanda is one of the strongest women that I know, because instead of crawling into a hole or assuming the fetal position, she created an organization to help others who are going through the similar experiences, similar feelings, similar trauma that she has gone through. So Amanda, thank you so much for coming on to Eye on the Target Radio.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. So after, as you start to tell people this, was there anything more that we need to know about this dirtball scumbag guy? Did they catch him? Did they,
Yes, they did. They did catch him. He went on to rape 2 other women, and he ended up murdering his last known victim. And so he is currently, thankfully, sitting on death row in Nevada. And so it occurred to me, not long after everything had happened, that had I been carrying my firearm that night, I would have been able to stop my attack as it was in progress, and consequently 2 other lives, including my own, would have been saved. And a physical life would have been saved as well.
And that truly is the power of self-defense and the ability to have a tool to use when it's called for or when it's needed.
Correct. Right, because you never know what that person's going to do after they're finished with you.
No, you don't. I mean, in the 1970s, they used to say, go along to get along and it'll all be fine. And they found out that that's not really true. That's Correct. Not really true. And so why do we still have no gun zones in colleges? Why don't we still have no gun zones in places where only the bad people have guns and the good people are defenseless?
Well, to me, that is a rhetorical question, but I think, honestly, I come up against this wall where guns and our advocacy efforts, and as you and I have gone in to talk to individual representatives, is that there's this idea, this lack of education of what gun ownership really looks like in a responsible manner, unfortunately. And so guns continue to be somewhat demonized, and even further, people just don't want to admit that anything bad could happen to them. And so saying like, hey, our students need the ability to protect themselves on our college campuses, the campuses that we promote as safe havens to the parents who are paying most of their tuition bills, saying that presents other challenges and presents other, emotional and mental challenges, not logistical challenges. Just it causes people to have to actually accept that we live in a broken, fallen world with evil people.
Right. And I think that the concept that there are evil people seems to just escape a group of people. It amazes me. It absolutely amazes me that it's like, well, why would they do that? Well, maybe they're just bad, bad to the bone, whatever that is, a bad seed. So I'm broken. I don't know. But when they spread that to people who aren't, people who are just going about their day-to-day lives. So, yeah, I don't know. It breaks my heart to hear what you had to go through. And then it strengthens my heart to see how strong it has forged you. So, like, forged in fire.
Yeah.
So you created an organization called Tears Speak. Does your book talk about Tears Speak at all? Does Tears Speak talk about the book? Are they connected in any way? Do they tie in one to another?
They are, because the proceeds from my book is going to help fund Tears Speak. And Tears Speak was really kind of birthed out of being in the Second Amendment advocacy arena and just coming across so many just unfathomable questions from legislators. Like, well, what could you have done better? Well, what were you wearing? Are you sure? Statistics are not on your side. If you had been carrying a gun, he would have taken it from you. Just completely demeaning, demoralizing, victim blaming, like blaming me for putting myself in the situation to be raped. So I've had those like actual words spoken to me, and then I've constantly come across like, oh, well, I was just so brushed off with, well, your case is just so rare. Like, that's really sad and tragic, but your case is so rare. That doesn't really happen. And so I started doing some more research and found out, no, that actually, it happens an awful lot. And I am not the only one. What makes my case rare is that I'm one of the less than 1% of survivors that have their attacker in jail. And I am in the immeasurable statistic that never has to fear my attacker walking the streets again.
I mean, because there's so many that they don't ever get in jail, or they let out of jail. And I mean, we see the news about rape kits that never get tested. So you go through all of that, and then they just don't take it any further, you know?
Right.
Sorry.
Right. Yeah, and so and I've been told, like, oh, well, it only lasted a few minutes. You can get over it. Why should you end someone else's life because of a bad choice they made? And so...
somebody seriously said that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That is... No, you can't make that up. I just have picked my jaw up off the floor because the choices that they made, this is one of those where they should have made a choice to where when they decided to do this, you had an opportunity to send, something ballistically toward them. I am correct. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. But you were so strong to have written the book. You're so strong to be out there speaking. I mean, I've seen some of the anti-gun legislators and some of the things that they have said, but I have never heard how ugly they could be to you, and I am sorry for that. I really am sorry for that. So let's get back to telling folks. We've got about a minute and a half. Let's tell folks how they can get to your book, because I don't want to miss that, because I do want them. I want them to have the opportunity to go help you get this book out into the public.
Thank you. It is redemption/press.com/shop/Beyond Survival, reclaiming my life after I was hijacked by rape. It's kind of long, but if you go to Redemption Press and you look at pre-orders, you can just put in the title of my book and it'll take you right to my partnership page.
Okay, so redemption-press.com is where you guys ought to go. And then you can, I'm sure that there's a little hourglass search function, Beyond Survival, Reclaiming My Life After I Was Hijacked by Rape. So Amanda Collins Johnson is a tiny little person. I mean, she is not big in stature, but man, is she big in heart. And so as one of the strongest people that I know, I'm so pleased that she's part of the DC Project. And once again, you guys, you get to meet so many amazing DC Project girls. But in this case, you can help her and her 501c3 organization, Tears Speak, in publishing this book, in getting it out, getting the message out, because no one should have to live through this and then have to relive it and continue to relive it without being heard. Amanda Collins Johnson, thank you.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women, who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your Second Amendment rights are under attack like no other time in history, and the Second Amendment Foundation needs you to take action now. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have pledged to make taking away your Second Amendment rights a top priority through gun bans, gun confiscation, government regulations, and even a gun tax. They have aligned themselves with anti-gun activists like billionaire Michael Bloomberg and appoint radicals like Beto O'Rourke as the anti-gun czar. The fight begins now with your text of Protect 2A to 474747. Text Protect 2A to 474747 to pledge your support and become a Second Amendment first responder. Your right to own a gun and protect your family are on the line. Text Protect 2A to 474747 and join the fight to protect your Second Amendment rights. Text Protect 2A to 474747 to pledge your support and become a Second Amendment first responder.
Fly our flags in glorious
and the home for everything Second Amendment, concealed carry, the latest gear, reciprocity, legislation, the right to self-protection, and it shall not be infringed. This is Eye on the Target Radio with your hosts, Rob and Amanda.
So, folks, I'm going to read you these headlines because we don't typically name someone. We really don't typically name someone as they talk about gun things unless they willingly want to be named. But the headline says, Minnesota turns down a concealed carry permit for Carrie McWilliams. And it was published in Ammo Land, and it was written by Dean Weingarten. And all of this matters for a reason. And let me start. Carrie McWilliams, he's a gun owner. He's a successful small and big game hunter. That's important. He's held concealed carry permits for 20 years. And he's now been turned down for a Minnesota permit because he's blind. So he applied for it for a second time. And his statement is it's blatant discrimination based on a disability. It probably violates the Americans with Disability Act. So all y'all are like, wait, a blind person with a gun? Well, a blind person is a small game hunter and a big game hunter. You know, think about it.
The thing is, if the rules were set up so, like your driver's license, you have to take a vision test, even as kind of hokey as their little vision test is.
As the thing with the little side lights and flickers and all that, right? But something.
If everyone had to take that test and then this guy was denied, that'd be one thing. But because no one had to take that test,
how can they? And blind is not in a black room with a dark room with no windows, no lights, no anything.
Right, it's
blind.
a subjective term as to how blind someone actually is and what they can or cannot see.
Right. So the Minnesota sheriff, confronted with evidence and with the possibility of an ADA lawsuit, has issued Carrie the Minnesota carry permit as like, oh, wait, never mind, I'm going to issue the permit. But I brought this story out because there's a couple different reasons. One is that Carrie is a book author and he's written books on how the blind can safely use firearms. One of the statements that he said was the fact that, you need to be extremely careful that you've got seconds to take a shot for self-defense. You need to know who it is and where they are and all of that kind of stuff. But in his case, there is also an extra safety built in that my hearing is on the line. So I will not shoot unless I absolutely have no other choice. Because for him, he doesn't have all of his senses, or he has a limited ability with some of his senses, and so he really preserves and protects the other ones. But let's talk about, a couple years ago, you got a call from our local sheriff that said, I'd like to put you on a call with the Attorney General, and I'd like you to go down through that, because I want people to think this through as to what it really means.
It was kind of funny because I was just it was early morning. I was online buying guns, and the sheriff called me. He wants to be on this conference call with the Attorney General's office, and here they have a guy who's legally blind. He wants to get his license, and they asked me about it because I'm a trainer. I says, well, he needs his license because of the fact that his disability. But then they said, well, if you were the sheriff, would you give him a license? I'm like, the sheriff cannot give him the license because no one has set up any parameters of how blind he is. Legally blind doesn't really mean you're blind, and the fact that, is this guy just getting blind? Has he been blind for years? Is he getting blinder as he goes? So is it something that they need to set up some rules as to how every year or 2 years he needs to have his eyes checked or whatever? So in the long run, I says he's going to have to sue, and then the sheriff's going to have to give him his license at that point. But I said until he sues and the Attorney General's office sets up parameters as to how blind you got to be to where you can't get a license, then
well, and they ask you, would you train him?
I said, yeah, if he came into my shop and I could tell that he could tell the difference between me and other people in the shop by just moving around and talking in general, then yeah, I would give him the training. I'm like, because like I say, legally blind does not necessarily mean that you can't see anything. You just can't see as well as normal people that are out on the street driving a car or reading a book or doing something like this. My mother, she was legally blind, but yet she still drove a car. So
she did. She would. It was somewhat disconcerting that she would drive to the store, park in a handicap spot, pull out her cane with the white tip, and tap her way, because she had no depth perception at all, into the grocery store. And you would see people go, wait, this is not... What did I just see? What did I just see? So blind is not necessarily blind. And one of the statements and one of the things that Dean Weingarten said that made an amazing amount of sense is there are now 21 constitutional carry states where blind people do not need permits to exercise their Second Amendment rights. So that's a piece of it, you know.
Well, that's the thing. They don't test your site to buy a gun. They don't test your site for anything else. So until they start testing everyone's site, not just the ones who declare they have a problem up front.
Right. They have to be able to be fair and even and balanced across the board. But I thought this was an interesting thought process, because how blind is blind, and frankly, when one sense goes, others do. So if you can tell by voice, by tread, by... I was listening to something the other day, and somebody said, if you can't tell which one of your children is walking up the stairs by their weight and their clunk and their dragging of their feet and how they are, then you're not a parent, right? You definitely know who's walking down. And I thought about that.
Yeah, because one's like the Walking Dead walking around.
Well, everybody's got their gait. Well, I work in a spot where my office, people walk by it where I can't see them, but I can hear them. And I'm like, yeah, I can tell you who's outside my office door. And so it's not just 2 children or 3 children. It's the 100 people I work with. I probably have got 30 of them, and I can identify who they are by their gait, by their shuffle, by their whatever. And I don't have heightened senses because one is missing, and so others are working overtime. So I thought it was a really interesting whole concept. And I think he's done a really good job. Kerry McWilliams has done a really good job. And frankly, I'm going to go look for his book and see what is there, because I think that would be a very interesting thing. So Kerry McWilliams has written books on how the blind can safely use a firearm. So check it out. Okay, what do you got?
Well, I got nothing.
You got... I'm not buying that you got nothing.
I did see where the president has been giving out these stimulus checks, and to the horror of the anti-gun end of it, they're realizing that people are spending that free money on a gun.
How can that be, right? With the anti-gun agenda that is right now.
You're supposed to be spending that money on kitchen appliances, furniture, and automobiles, and not on a new gun, supposedly. But they're saying that whenever those checks come out, they can see a noticeable ramping up of background checks.
Well, when you see the riots, the fighting, the heightened crime, and just overall violence. Did you see in the news today a second airline has said that they will no longer serve alcohol because people are too violent when they're alcohol fueled? And so if the airlines are saying, I'm going to give away a profit center because it's not worth it, that says that people have to take responsibility for themselves.
We no longer have any personal responsibility. This is some of the problem we have with the defund the police and other things, is that it's not my fault, and you can't make me play by your rules. I think it's...
Okay, our producer once again has said a Desert Eagle 50 caliber is not a lot more than a stimulus check. Just saying.
It's right in that wheelhouse. I mean,
So what's your excuse there, Paul? That's what we want to know. What is your excuse? So that when I go to the range with you, I want to see that big bejeweled Desert Eagle.
Say, my Uncle Joe bought this for me.
My Uncle Joe. Yeah. I don't think your Uncle Joe meant to buy it for you. I think he would rather have you have some potato chips and gasoline at $3 or $4 a gallon. That would be his aspirations. So hey, when we come back, we've got more in the news for you.
Honest citizens like you protect themselves every day. We talk about it every week on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Were these gun owners lucky, or did they have a plan? How should we defend the people we love? We discuss recent examples on the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. Put us in your pocket.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to DavenportGuns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Hi, this is Paul Lathrop from the Polite Society podcast. I wanted to let you know that the show you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can check out all the shows on the network by going to selfdefenseradio.net or tune in for more on Self-Defense Mondays on Karma Radio, KRMAradio.com.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Seppacool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Had a dirty day? Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps, made from fresh goat's milk and organic oils that detoxify, clean, and restore moisture to skin, will get you ready for your next adventure. These unique soaps are handcrafted in the Blue Ridge Mountains and shipped to anywhere in the U.S. Visit SillyBillyGoatFarm.com for their full line of Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps. That's SillyBillyGoatFarm.com.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough? Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl/mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
week I pull up some news articles and just fill the table full of things that I think will spark a conversation and get us going. And so it was really interesting. One of the things that I got for Guns in the News stories is the NRA has for media has all the places that guns were used in self-defense or guns were talked about or bills that they're coming after and all of this. So there's all these segments and news connections. And so one of them that the NRA sent out was defending yourself, your family, and strangers. More self-defense gun stories. And I thought, I'll follow that trail. I'll follow it down and see what happens, because self-defense gun stories are always well worth the time and effort. So when I opened up the link, it was from a paper called Guns in the News. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. And so I went to look at it, and it was, that's interesting. Guns in the News says they got it from AmmoLand. So now I'm 3 connections links deep. And when I open it up from there, it's like, hey, that's my name.
AmmoLand got it from you.
AmmoLand got it. So I just wanted to say that it just kind of worked its way around. And so Rob Morris and I had done some self-defense gun stories. There was an AmmoLand article about it. It quotes Rob, it quotes me. And so it was this whole 22-minute audio of self-defense gun stories. But that's how... So sometimes you're like, you see something and it hits the national news and it's taken a couple days. Well, it's because they started on AmmoLand and then they went to Guns in the News, then they went to the NRA, then it went to Media Radio, and then it got to you.
It's kind of funny because I'll see something in the news and it may take it a month before it gets in the print somewhere. It's
right.
Like, there was a little article or something I seen in the corner of something.
And then somebody else picked it up, and it's working its way through. But I just thought that the whole trail to this, and then it was like when I got to my name, I was like, hey, that's where that.
Call them and get them on the show.
Oh, me? I should call me and say, would you like to come back? Yeah, there you go. Got it. So what do you got?
Here's a thing where the media is telling you how to phrase, like when they have these public shootings and stuff like this, mass shootings, they have certain phrases and things that they want you to say it a certain way so that it sounds more, it fits their agenda better.
It sounds more biased. So the interesting thing is that the Trace is the trace.org is it describes itself as the only newsroom dedicated to reporting on gun violence. And so it's looking for how does it create that message and the imaging of gun violence and what really is gun violence.
New stuff. I mean, if the shooter fits their agenda, so he's a white guy went off the rails and shut the place up, then they're all about it. They tell every detail. You get a week's worth of news out of this. If the guy is not in this thing, say he's Middle Eastern, or he's recently come back from a trip overseas, or he's been, that they can actually link him to a terrorist training camp or something.
Or the fact that one of the alphabet agencies has had him on their radar for quite a while and just let him slip through the cracks.
Right. All that seems to be a 1 day, 1 hour news cycle. I mean,
and then it doesn't,
they mention it until they find out the details, and then they no longer mention anything about it. And you really have to do some searching to find out who, what, where, and when. And
right. So it's really interesting. The Trace is actually part of the Bloomberg organization and the anti-gun or empire, if you will. And so it is the propaganda arm, as Lee Williams calls it, for the Bloomberg. And so it is not a grassroots organization. It is not a news organization. It is part of Every Town and Moms Demand Action and the other bankrolled organizations in portions of the Bloomberg's anti-gun agenda. And yet it poses as a credible news source, and periodically you will see people cite it and quote it, and it's like, stop. So here's an anti-gun guy who's got his own newspaper writing anti-gun stories, and we're quoting them? No, because it does not pass the smell test. It does not pass the legitimacy test, and it only really pushes stories that they have that resemble actual news stories, but they're not really.
It's like they're in the middle of picking a new director for the ATF.
Right.
And so, and this guy is bad news for the gun, for the Second Amendment altogether. He really doesn't have any positive credentials in the gun arena except for that he hates guns. And so,
well, and that is so true. So he worked for the ATF for 25 years, and then he spent the last 10 years working for Everytown for Gun Safety, the Giffords organization, and ShotSpotter, which is the cameras, the streetlight cameras that call the police if they hear a noise in a community. They don't make the community safer. They just call the police if they...
We've seen them in the news at Christmas Day in Tennessee when the gunfight versus the explosion at the AT or the AT&T,
that was Atlanta, wasn't it? The AT&T building?
In Nashville, I believe.
Nashville. Okay, Nashville. Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, the ShotSpotter actually picked up that there was gunfire in the neighborhood, and then there was actually this explosion that they were able to be there to film it, but because the spot shotter picked it out. But anyhow,
but nothing has happened.
The thing is
bad either.
All of these multiple shooters or mass shooters that are recently in the news, they're all finding that all of them were able to buy a gun. They can pass the background check. They can do all the stuff. The problem you have is you can't think ahead of time what these guys are going to do with this stuff. So this was the new guy for the ATF. He believes that he should be able to do a thought police type.
Thought police in advance of everybody and everything. Yeah, when they do have warnings, they don't take any action on those warnings that are legal.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a range master certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Had a dirty day? Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps, made from fresh goat's milk and organic oils that detoxify, clean, and restore moisture to skin, will get you ready for your next adventure. These unique soaps are handcrafted in the Blue Ridge Mountains and shipped to anywhere in the U.S. Visit SillyBillyGoatFarm.com for their full line of Grunt Goat Tactical Soaps. That's SillyBillyGoatFarm.com. Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Shotgun with Charlie.
I'm Charlie Cook from Riding Shotgun with Charlie. Conversations in the car about gun safety, freedoms, and even a few laughs. Imagine you're in the back seat listening to an intimate chat with me and my passengers as we drive all around the country. Listen, watch, and subscribe to the Riding Shotgun with Charlie YouTube channel and podcast.
This is Dan Perkins with your songs and stories for soldiers, Veterans Tip of the Day. If you're a veteran with a disability, are you interested in a program that could give you a free home? Homes for Our Troops is a privately funded 501c3 nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans to enable them to rebuild their lives. These homes restore some of the freedom and independence our veterans sacrificed while defending our country and enable them to focus on their family and recovery. Since its inception in 2004, nearly 90 cents of every dollar has gone directly to the program to serve veterans. HFOT builds these homes where the veterans choose to live and continues its relationship with the veterans after the home delivery to assist them in rebuilding their lives. For more information, go to their website, www.hfotusa.org, and see if you can qualify for the home of your dreams. This has been your Songs and Stories for Soldiers, Veterans Tip of the Day.
Okay, so we are back. South Carolina's governor has just signed an open carry bill into law. The interesting part is that they signed a bill, but it's open carry with training. So it's open carry with a caveat. And not a lot of states, 31 states, just have plain old open carry. If you want to carry in the open, you carry in the open. 16 states have training or some kind of restriction, some kind of caveat that goes with their open carry. And 11 states, and you'll notice that all doesn't total 50, because some of them are territories. So it's states or territories. Some of them have 11 of them say, can't do it. Not this town ain't big enough for both of us. So,
I mean, Ohio's always had open carry. Wasn't an issue, but the concealed carry made the difference. And when they mandated training for concealed carry, a lot of people went crazy about the fact that you can't mandate training.
Right. Well, and so
but they mandate drivers.
Training is not just training. It's not just a good idea. I mean, that there's a spot where if you are called to use your gun, you wish you had all the training in the world, not just a little bit of training. You don't have nearly enough, no matter what it is.
If you don't know anything at all on the subject, besides the fact that I want to have a gun in my pocket or something, then yeah, knowing when you're allowed to use the gun or when you need to call your lawyer or what, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, when you need to shut your mouth.
Right. All that stuff would come in handy.
It would come in handy.
It's just the fact that we're not the kind of people who allow them to force us to do it.
Well, and
then to pay for the privilege, that
Right.
really is icing on the cake at that point.
Honestly, I believe that we ought to offer gun training in schools, and we ought to make it to where when you grow up, you understand how to and what the safety is, instead of vilifying it so badly.
Well, some of it is there's so many different lines here. I mean, you hear people all the time say, "Well, I was in the military." Well, military training is great, but it's not concealed carry training. Police officers learn a completely different line of training than the concealed carry student on the street.
Because the military is, you go hold that line, or you go kill that guy, or you go stop that thing.
You're
Police,
working as a team to make this happen. When you're with your gun in your pocket on the street, you're a one-man team.
You're
you don't
the team.
have backup. You don't have. You can't call for an airstrike or any of that stuff. So
it's you, and you're kind of hoping that you can get your gun out of its holster and into action in enough time that they don't get a shot off first. That's really, how fast is fast enough? It's that. How much training does the other guy have? And you need just a little bit more, whatever that is.
Right. I mean, and it's so funny is that you cannot believe how many people think that they have time to pull their gun out of their pocket, rack the slide, put it around in the chamber, make all this stuff happen. It's amazing when you get right down to it. If you've ever done any close quarters combat or any of this stuff with anybody,
how fast
somebody could punch your lights out or cut you up or any of this stuff, and you're thinking, I got time to put bullets in my gun.
No, you don't. And you may not have that hand to put bullets in the gun because it may be busy punching the other guy right in the nose, or holding him off, or pushing him, or hanging onto a cliff, or
cut all up with the with the other thing, or it's holding your knife holes shut while you're trying to get your gun action.
Well, all of that. I mean, so when you start to look at people who've used a gun in self-defense, and then you look at what they've had to do and what their other hand is doing during it.
If you go online, you could find some stuff about tooler drills. You should investigate a tooler drill because it definitely is eye-opening. It shows you some where you thought you had plenty of room and time to operate, and you don't. There's another one that was Doug Marcaida and Professor Zero.
Right.
And they're talking about a knife against a gun, and that's a very eye-opening video also.
Because in the end, one of them cheats.
Right. And if you're not cheating, you're not winning. So pay attention.
So why don't you walk them down through that? Because I think that was great. Because here's these two guys, and they are friends, and they've agreed that they're going to do this.
They're going to do this test to see if the knife is faster than the gun, blah, blah, blah. And so when it comes right down to it, they're talking out the rules, Marcaida walks up to Professor Zero and takes his fake knife out and cuts his head off. And Professor Zero's like, I wasn't ready. He's like, you should always be ready.
And you're never ready, and you should always be ready. It's sort of the thing. It's not, because the bad guy's not going to holler go.
Right. And it's just their general conversation. All of a sudden, he just reaches in, pulls his knife out, and boom, fast.
Right.
It was all over in seconds, and
yeah. Is it Professor Zero or Instructor Zero?
I don't know. It's
okay. It's one of those. It just is, because
I went with Professor because it just sounded.
It sounded better. I thought it was Instructor.
Either way, if you look up Doug Marcaida, you can find it.
And Zero, you'll find it. Whatever his prefix is. I don't know exactly what the prefix is, but it's one of those. But so yeah, I think it's cool that he cheated. Actually, I really do, because it really shows. So it really shows that you have to kind of think outside the box. So you don't just be like, oh, well, everybody plays by the same rules, because you don't play by the same rules. If they did play by the same rules, there wouldn't be crime. They wouldn't be evil. There wouldn't be all of these things that happen when you're looking at it going, those aren't the rules I was raised up with. That's not how I was raised, and so I just don't understand this. Yeah.
The new DOJ guy, Merrick Garland, you've heard about him in the news.
Right.
He says that guns are bad, and he's going to throw a lot of money at this. So
it's really interesting. He calls it an epidemic. So the deputy, I want to read you this. So the Deputy Attorney General, Lisa Monaco, sent out a document obtained by AmmoLand. So this is from John Crump at AmmoLand. And it centers around the department's effort at reducing violent crime. The memorandum separates offenses committed with a firearm, which it calls as an epidemic, from other forms of violent crime. So because if you use a gun to murder somebody versus you murder them with any other tool, they're more murdered? Okay. The document does highlight the civil unrest that took place. The document does highlight the civil unrest that took place last summer and the national lockdown, but they're calling it a epidemic. And then they talk about it calls for more transparency and law enforcement to commit to procedural justice and community policing. I underline that. What is community policing? Is that where they send the social worker?
That's your.
Or is that where
the old McGruff the dog with your neighborhood watch? So.
Well, except that when when George Zimmerman and the Tyvon Martin put the neighborhood watch back 20 years. Right. So there's that.
So he's going to rev that back up again, but
is the community policing Mrs. Kravitz from?
Not with white guys. That's white people can't do it. You got to be, and then. The other part of it is they're going to do more of these gun buybacks. They're using your tax dollar to try to get as much of this stuff.
You can't buy back something that you didn't own in the first place.
Now I've seen, and I can't show you where I've seen this, but the gang members that they have in the penitentiaries say that they get their guns from the CIA, and the CIA just drops them off in boxes at the doorstep. So, and really, the government buyback may be that they're buying their own stuff back. I mean, it's
it may be. Okay, so there you go. So our producer says, "I want to see a social worker arrest the crackhead that doesn't want to go to jail." Right. Well, besides that, you got to wait 5 to 7 days for the social worker to show up. Not putting social workers down at all, but they didn't sign up to be police.
Well,
they signed up to.
They're not there to put them in jail. They're there to make them feel better about themselves.
They signed up to pat them on the little shoulder and say it's all going to be better.
Go home, watch TV, sleep it off.
Right. No, I mean, I have the utmost respect for social workers, but there's just a line here.
There's a spot where they're out of their league.
They're completely out of their element. They did not sign up for that.
Once the police had captured someone and they realized what the issue is, then that's the time that the social worker may be assigned to that. But when they got them on the loose, I don't think that you want to go to their natural habitat looking for trouble.
No, because they've already had.
Hi, I'm Janelle Westrom, owner of Davenport Guns and Davenport Shooting Club. At Davenport Guns, we do so much more than sell firearms. We advocate for increased personal safety and security, not just for you, but your whole family and community. Go to davenportguns.com to see our online inventory and browse videos, articles, and things we just find entertaining. Sign up for our newsletter to learn more.
This is Cheryl Todd of Gun Freedom Radio, and I am proud to join Amanda Seppacool and all the 50 women, one from each state, in our grassroots efforts to protect the Second Amendment as delegates of the DC Project. Grassroots organizations like the DC Project run on donations, so please consider donating to our GoFundMe/DC Project to keep the promise of freedom alive.
Ladies, ever wish you could find a brand that understood the difference between feminine and functional? A brand that didn't make you choose between looking good and looking tough. Check out offhandgear.com, a brand designed by a gun girl / mom that closed the gap to give you feminine, durable, functional gear. Offhandgear.com, the brand that gets you.
We all know rust is bad. To help keep rust from forming on your firearms, tools, and other ferrous-based items, you want to have Rust is Bad in your gun-safe toolbox and anywhere you want to be rust-free. Rust is Bad bolsters and G-strings deposit small, safe particles that coat your rust-vulnerable items. Save your valuable items with Rust is Bad. Go to www.eyeonthetargetradio.com and follow the link for more information. That's www.eyeonthetargetradio.com for Rust is Bad.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.
Your front door, your car, your gun. Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different, and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. Cable locks help keep firearms secured. Learn how to get a free firearm safety kit. Visit projectchildsafe.org. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Grab your friends and head to Georgia to train with the Complete Combatant. The Complete Combatant offers a unique approach to self-defense training, layering the first signs of danger, lethal versus non-lethal decisions, and even surviving the aftermath. They offer premier firearms training with a Rangemaster certified instructor and host the top minds in our industry. See the courses offered on thecompletecombatant.com. That's thecompletecombatant.com.
Okay, folks, we are back. Hey, we want to tell you, go to car.com, KAHR.com, and check out their line of firearms. It's pretty amazing. And if you are in the Scranton, Pennsylvania, Greeley, Pennsylvania area, go to the Tommy Gun Warehouse and shop, because it's a pretty amazing store. They actually even have violin cases that are gun cases, so you can look cool.
They don't sell what are those fedoras or whatever.
No, they just sell cello cases and violin cases, so you can have either one of those. And the last time we were there, they had ammo by the skid.
It's like a gun shop that's a destination, not just a regular gun shop.
Right. It really is. Sort of like, where's that one in Florida that we went to that was a destination, man?
AAA Pawn. We always stop in when we're in the neighborhood because they have some amazing stuff there.
Yeah, and it's worth your time. I mean, going to a gun shop that has got both new and used stuff, you could just look in each nook and cranny. And sometimes when you go to a gun shop and all they have is new stuff, it's kind of disappointing. It's like,
I'm very
sad.
into the old, whether bullet molds or whatever they got, old guns, old scopes, old anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice to find a shop like that, but they're getting harder and harder to find because just the junk that takes to fill up the nooks and crannies starts costing millions of dollars.
It really does. It costs a lot. So, and
$1 million junk room that
and is it going to move? Right,
Yes.
that's the thing. Is it looks cool, but is it going to move? And the purpose of a gun store is to actually
But everything
sell
has
things.
to sell. Though you need to roll that stuff over.
Right,
and,
often.
If it doesn't move, it's costing you money in the long run.
Right.
So here's an article. It's funny because
it's written by Greg Ellifritz, so I want to give him credit. And I think he's really on to something here. The psychology of the previous investment. So go ahead.
Well, it's just when you buy something, you made the decision that it was good. So now that he says you stick with that, even though it's a bad.
It's proven.
I mean, you can see it in automobiles more than anything.
Oh yeah.
I bought a car. It's a lemon. It's a junker, but I put $3,000 more into it because I got faith.
Well, or you're driving one going, should I buy a new car? Is my car going to die? Is my car going to start to cost me more and more money? Should I just bite the bullet and go to the next one or not? Well, no, maybe I'm going to stay here. It's definitely the boiled frog syndrome. I'm going to stay here in the water till it gets so hot that it's going to kill me.
Right. Well, and that's the trouble with an old gun is you get to where there's no parts available. You can't buy magazines. You can't buy holsters. You can't hardly buy any of the stuff that goes with extra sights or anything like this. So it's time to upgrade to a newer gun. It's just I like my old gun, so I hate to jump into something new.
I hate to move. I mean, I think he's nailed us perfectly. He's got
it too. Is you buy a gun a lot of times it's money. I mean, this gun, you go.
I saved. I found it, and
this looks cheap. I'll have that one, and then you hate it, but you stick with it for ever and ever.
Well, and then I'm sorry. I have to start with the caveat that says I'm not a Glock person. I'm just not. And so many people, they buy a Glock, and the first thing they do is they say, "Oh, I have to put new sights on it. Oh, I have to put a new barrel in it. Oh, I have to."
New this, new that. They've rebuilt the whole thing.
It's like, why?
So
why? And it's not just Glocks, but you see them. You see the Glock snobs more than.
There's a ton of secondary industry that depends on all of the stuff that you're buying. I mean, and the last couple of months, I've been having sight issues over and over and over again because
Look, those new sights are amazing.
Had I just stuck with the old original sights, I would have been just fine. I just had to go.
Had to step up.
Had to go.
And because he stepped up, I stepped up. So here we are. But no, the new sights.
The new XS sights are great.
Oh, amazing! Amazing. And so, there is that. So this was a statement that Greg Ellifritz made in the psychology of the previous investment. It's what happens when we let our ego get involved in our decision-making process. We convince ourselves that our decisions are optimal. And it damages our ego to admit that we were wrong, so we continue to work to support our initial poor decision. Does that not nail so many?
The part is if you have something that you do like, and do you stick with that same manufacturer, or do you just keep moving? You always move because this is prettier, this is nicer, this holds 21 shots, or this fits in this holster, or whatever the thing is.
There's all these different reasons why people pick the things that they pick, and it's pretty funny. The video producer's wife makes sure that his ego never gets too large. So there is that. That's from our producer from the production room is saying he's tuning right in there.
I mean, I go to gun shop all the time, and I just look through the stuff. And the last I bought a FNS. The last time I was at a shop, they had a nice one. Somebody had painted it. I was playing with it. I liked it. I went home. I came back the next day. It was gone. I realized from then that I should have bought it then. So I went online. I ordered another one and had it shipped in. And I love this gun. I've been shooting the crap out of it for about 5-6 months now. And no issues. It shoots great. I had a custom holster built for it and everything. And I'm very happy with it. But I was just looking for a larger gun. I mean, I got plenty of small guns. I got plenty of large guns, but I'm just looking at...
Right.
And so I'm happy that I bought this particular one. It's funny that my friend that I shoot with all the time, he has a completely different line of guns that he plays with. But he all the time keeps thinking he's going to buy one of these just because I'm so happy with the one that I have.
Right. And if you're happy with it, then he needs one. And frankly, he's not built the same way you're built, which means that you don't shoot the same way.
Right, but it's funny. It's like he just sees how well I like this one and how successful it is, that now he's going to go buy one too. So will he have buyer's remorse, and after he owns it, he won't shoot it again?
Well, the good news is he just jettisons them pretty quickly. So that's that advantage of
when I bought my Diamondback, he went and bought a Diamondback at the same time, and then he had some custom work done on springs and different parts in it, and we shot it for about 2 months, and then it went in a box, and I've never seen his Diamondback again.
He didn't like it. He doesn't. He's not as in love with it as you are. He didn't paint it a custom color. His isn't Tiffany blue. He doesn't.
I like that little gun. I mean, I find that I carry it a lot more than I thought I would in the beginning. I just bought it because it kind of had a good-looking style to the stainless steel.
Well, okay, that is one reason. There's actually 2 reasons. Payday is 7 days. You're so happy with yourself. He's like, I'm so amusing. Aren't I amusing? Don't you find me amusing? No, we don't find you amusing. So, no, but the second reason is that if you buy, at least, is it national or is it at least in our state?
If you buy a gun, and I think it's a 5-day or 7-day cycle from the same manufacturer, from the same
gun shop. They have to do a multiple
purchase form out and send it to the government. So
but the thing is it goes to the government, but it also goes to the sheriff's department. So where your traditional relationship and that call-in is with your gun shop and the ATF, this includes a couple other organizations and groups that are not as required to keep things confidential as just the ATF call. And so there's another level of who has access and who has knowledge and who knows what I have. And that is why Rob's personal 8-day waiting period is there.
Okay, you ask yourself, who is this Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition, and what do they do? Realize Firearms Awareness Coalition is a not-for-profit group based in Portage County, registered as a 501c3, and organized to educate about the historical intent of the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, to share knowledge, to enable citizens to accurately relate and defend aspects of the U.S. Constitution, to enhance public awareness and support for responsible gun ownership, and to emphasize firearms education for women who facilitate the transmittal of constitutional awareness and gun ownership to succeeding generations. How do they intend to do that? By talking to you all and having you talk back, by hosting educational summits and events. So tune in, listen, and participate. RealizeFAC.com.